It was the dead of night. A monstrous wall of water rushed ashore. Entire cities vanished in hours. Imagine the wind ripping your roof off, the sea swallowing your street, and the radio going silent. All you could hear was the howl of the storm and the cries of people fighting for survival. What if I told you that in U.S. history, several hurricanes have left a scar so deep, their lessons still guide how we build, warn, evacuate, and survive today? In this video, we will dive into the top 5 most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history. Not just by cost, but by lives lost, lessons learned, and what those storms teach us about preparing for the next one. Stick around because some of the mistakes of the past are still haunting us. The Great Galveston Hurricane of 1900, at the turn of the 20th century, Galveston, Texas, was a booming island city of nearly 38,000 people. On September 8, 1900, a Category 4 hurricane struck, sending a storm surge of 8 to 12 feet across the island. The result? Between 6,000 and 12,000 lives lost. Official figures often cite 8,000. Every structure was damaged. 636 homes destroyed outright. This remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. Though the cost in $1,900 was modest, the human toll was staggering. What we learned: the disaster spurred major improvements in forecasting and weather observation. Galveston built a seawalls 10 miles long up to 17 feet high and raised the elevation of large parts of the island. It taught early America that warning systems, infrastructure resilience, and public awareness can mean life or death, even when technology is limited. Hurricane Katrina's 2005. Fast forward to August 2005. Hurricane Katrina approached the Gulf Coast, ultimately making landfall near New Orleans. Its strongest legacy is staggering: over 1,800 lives lost and estimated $125 billion in damage. The levees failed. Floodwaters submerged entire neighborhoods. The Superdome became a refuge-turned-nightmare. In many ways, Katrina exposed systemic weaknesses: lack of coordination, delays in rescue, social inequality, and infrastructure unprepared for extreme stress. What we learned: the importance of evacuation planning and timely orders. The need for robust levees, pumps, flood defenses, and maintenance. Social and economic inequalities magnify disasters. The poorest are often hit hardest. Coordinated emergency response, federal, state, local, must be rehearsed and flexible. After Katrina, dozens of lessons learned, reports were published and reforms pushed forward. Hurricane Harvey, 2017. Hurricane Harvey made landfall in Texas and stalled, unleashing deluges of rain that lasted days. Houston and surrounding areas were buried under unprecedented flooding. Harvey caused around $125 billion in damage, rivaling Katrina in cost. Though the death toll was lower compared to Katrina, the prolonged flooding caused mass displacement, infrastructure collapse, and long recovery periods. What we learned: storm stalling is a major risk. This is not just about winds or surge, but extreme rainfall and inland flooding. Urban planning matters. Impermeable surfaces, drainage systems, spillways, and wetlands can reduce flood risk. Coordinated rescue and shelter logistics are crucial when flooding cuts off roads and isolates neighborhoods. The boundaries between coastal and inland impacts blur. Preparation cannot only focus on immediate shorelines. Hurricane Ian, 2022. One of the newer entries, but one worth watching. Hurricane Ian struck Florida with brutal force. It is counted among the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history, over $112 billion in damage and 150 deaths. Ian's surge and wind destruction along Florida's Gulf Coast were merciless. Downtowns flattened, coastal communities erased. What we learned: in the modern era, evacuation compliance and timing data that's via cell phone movement help planners gauge who left, when and where. Infrastructure aging matters. Older levees, bridges, drainage systems are vulnerable in intense storms. The importance of resilience, not just resistance. Structures that bend, flood-tolerant design refuse to collapse. Public communication matters. Clear warning, trust in agencies, prepositioning of supplies. Hurricane Andrews, 1992. Though a bit older, Andrew is a classic case. It struck South Florida and Louisiana as a Category 5 to 65 manif winds, devastating neighborhoods in Miami-Dade. It caused a $27.3 billion in damage and 65 deaths. At that time, it was the costliest hurricane in U.S. history until Katrina. Andrew showed how a more compact but intense storm could inflict massive damage. In Florida, many houses were obliterated or reduced to foundations. What we learned: building codes needed dramatic improvement. After Andrew, Florida adopted stricter hurricane-resistant construction standards. Roof ties, stronger windows, better anchoring, all became part of the new standard. Insurance and risk modeling change. Properties in vulnerable zones demanded better assessment. Even well-prepared regions can suffer severe impact if storm characteristics align with vulnerabilities. Honorable mentions: and deadly storms. We should also recognize other storms that, while not in the top 5 by cost, caused massive death tolls. The San Felipe, Okeechobee Hurricane of 1928's mainly Florida Okeechobee Lake flooding killed 1,836 people. The 1893 Sea Islands hurricane hit Georgia and South Carolina, killing 1,000 to 2,000 people, mostly by surge. These remind us even when a storm is not big, by cost, human vulnerability, flat low-lying lands, poor infrastructure can magnify catastrophe. Common threads and lessons across hurricanes. When you look at these storms side by side, certain common lessons emerge: early warning, clear communication, and trust are essential. A strong forecast means nothing if people don't believe or act on it. Evacuation plans and execution must consider transportation, shelters, special populations, and timing. Infrastructure resilience matters. Levees, seawalls, drainage, roads, power grids, all must be built or retrofitted to handle extremes. Building codes and zoning must discourage development in high-risk zones, or enforce construction that can survive high winds and floods. Flood and surge risk inland is as real as coastal zones. Storms that stall or push heavy rains inland can do major damage well away from the shore. Social equity and preparedness. Poor communities tend to suffer disproportionately. They need extra support and resources. Learning from the past, updating plans, funding mitigation, paying attention to climate trends. In the modern age of climate change, storms may get stronger, sea levels are rising, and more people live along vulnerable coasts. The history of hurricanes in the U.S. isn't just history, it's a blueprint for what works, what fails, and what must change. Narrative weaving. Storytelling section. Optional visual cue insert. Imagine it's late evening, September 1900. Families in Galveston hear the wind mounting. Some board up windows, but there's no warning of the storm surge rising behind them. In hours, water crashes in, sweeping away houses, drowning people in their sleep. Across time, radio broadcasts warn Louisiana and Mississippi. Skip ahead to 2005 in New Orleans, forecasters warn Katrina. But the levees fail and politicians argue over who acts first. Jump to 2022, residents of Florida check their phones, see evacuation routes, and some stay, until surge and winds overwhelm them. These snapshots show the arc of human vulnerability. Knowledge improves, but building, trust, readiness, and resources must match the danger. The storms may differ in era, technology, or wind speed, but the terror, the human cost, is tragically similar. Thanks for joining this journey through the 5 most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history, and the lessons still echoing in our weather systems today. If you found this video insightful, please hit that like button, share it with friends who care about climate, safety, and history, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into natural disasters, history, and resilience. Click the bell so you'll never miss an episode. And now I leave you with this thought: storms will come again. But if we remember the tragedies of Galveston, Katrina, Harvey, Ian, and Andrew, and act wisely, we may survive them better than we have before. Stay safe, stay prepared, and see you in the next video.